Welcome to the summer of Overwatch Season 17. It is July. We have some hot takes here, which are hopefully hot, unlike you. Okay, first hot take of the week. Everyone says Overwatch is so well made. However, the game struggles in Stadium and 6v6, which is something I feel Overwatch 1 handled just fine. I feel using their own engine ultimately limits the game more than it improves optimization. That is certainly a take, because I do agree that Overwatch is very well made when you compare it to the absolute FPS struggles. I say for FPS is frame rates, not first person shooter. The frame struggles and memory leaks that all these other games have been coming out with. Granted, a lot of stuff is on Unreal Engine 5, I believe. I'm not a game dev, so like don't quote me on that. So I know like obviously Marvel Rivals, terrible optimization. A couple of games I've been trying to play lately, or when they first came out, they were not optimized very well. I remember Monster Hunter Wild just could not run on my PC, and I have a pretty good PC. A lot of games struggle, and I think Overwatch, you know, outside of Stadium and 6v6 has been pretty good. I haven't had any issues on PC for Stadium 6v6, but I have heard that console did struggle with Stadium and 6v6. We don't talk about Nintendo Switch 1. That is some 2016 piece of tech, which means they were developing that stuff in like 2014, 2015. That is outdated. I'm not sure how Nintendo Switch 2 is handling Overwatch, I'm gonna be honest. I know even like PS4 and Xbox One and Series X is kind of struggling with Stadium because of all these new projectiles and new things being fired in the game. And with 6v6, there's a lot of new stuff. You say Overwatch 1 handled it fine, but they did port a new engine and whatnot, and things were updated with Overwatch 2 to keep up. If you actually look back at old Overwatch 1 footage, like their particles and their effects were actually a lot lower quality back then, which probably, you know, you might remember it running 6v6 well, but it was also a little bit older and outdated. Like Overwatch on high graphics actually looks very pretty, and it runs pretty well, all things considered. So I don't agree with this take. I still think Overwatch is pretty well made when you factor in how other games look and how the other games are performing comparatively speaking. Still run the game at a very, very high frame rate without too many drops right now. Hot take, people are over complaining about Freya. I will say I am biased as a Freya main. Oh, okay, great start here. But I don't think she's too strong or poorly designed. She's a good hero that is very adaptable, but I feel she has a lot of skill-based matchups, and a lot of people are just losing those matchups right now because people are just now getting better at her, which means people are just now learning how to play against her. If anything, I love how adaptable she is, because while playing against D.Va, Genji, or Sombra as a Freya is scary, you don't need to swap if you're good enough, or if people are picking characters they don't know well just to win the counter swap game. I would love to hear your take on this, KarQ, if Freya is power creep in a bottle, or if projectile hero mains are over complaining. I think there was merit to it early on, and I think you're right though, and you can totally see with the way they balanced it, how like they buffed her at first because she was underperforming, and then they kind of nerfed her back to where she started at because Freya players were getting better, and then now there's a little bit of a lag or a delay before the players who learn how to play against her are like adjusting to her. So there's like that little in-between period. If we look at the statistics, I think Freya is consistently right now underperforming stats wise, but like heroes like Tracer also underperform, and Sojourn underperform, and Winston underperform at the average ranks. And I think people have made it very easy to just complain and kind of get what they want. And honestly, I kind of agree with this take that people are over complaining now. Yes, she's a little bit of a freak at super high elos, but so is Sojourn and so is Tracer, and like, you know, a lot of people complain about them as well, but they don't get as much attention as the brand new shiny toy, the brand new hero, aka Freya. Because she's new, people are just gonna like default to like she's overtuned, but realistically I think her numbers are at a much healthier place now. I think the only big thing for me with Freya was like cheesing the perma flight thing with the aim down sight slowing down your momentum. The moment they cut that corny part of her kit out, I was actually pretty happy with where she was, and I do think the people that are still complaining about her are probably over complaining a little bit too much. Like if Tracer was released in 2025 with the way she is now, people would also over complain, but because she's a hero that people have been used to playing against for so many years, like a lot of high elo players complain about her, don't get me wrong, but like your average player isn't complaining about her, but your average player is complaining about Freya because they saw a few of them pop off and they'll just defaulted to like new hero power creep. Same thing we saw with Sojourn, etc., etc. So I do agree with this take. People are still over complaining about her just a little bit. I think she's fine right now. Hot take, I guess, but putting Zarya and D.Va in Stadium was just plain dumb. It makes picking D.Va way too risky and punishing. Well, I think with this, they needed to add a few more items to help deal with certain bad counter matchups, and D.Va does have an item, which is like the anti-beam item, which reduces beam damage by a significant amount, and it actually makes D.Va quite playable into it. But like Zarya, just farms so much damage with her stuff, and she's very safe in a lot of the matchups. So like I can see why Zarya is problematic for a lot of people. The bubbles are super annoying, and the laser just beats out a lot of options. So I guess, but at the end of the day, if you're gonna slowly release all the heroes in the game, it just so happens Zarya and D.Va are in the pool. It's not too big of a deal as long as you give people more options. And right now it's a single item for D.Va, which kind of sucks. And I wish there was like more options to pick against it. Maybe like a CC debuff or something that like helps insta pop enemy shields, things that do amplified damage to shields or bubbles. I think there is one item that does a bit more, but nobody clicks that item because the stats kind of suck. But there is an item that like helps shield break with Ryan, and I assume would work by shooting the Zarya bubble, but the problem with Zarya is that you charge her. So maybe there should be a new extra item that allows you to help break bubbles as well without giving her, you know, energy. And like people will be like, well, that sounds unbalanced. Well, it costs money, right? Stadium cash to buy items like this. I think Stadium still needs like a lot more iterations to finally get to a point where we enjoy more seamless balance. But for now, I don't think it's necessarily dumb that they're in the game together. They just need more options. Hot take, even winning doesn't feel good on tank. If you roll the other tank, they get flamed in chat, tank diff. I've been on the other side and it sucks. I don't even have fun when winning, when teams get toxic about the only position where you don't have anyone to share the responsibility. That is certainly a take, because I certainly enjoy winning when I play Junker Queen or when I play Zarya, when I play Sigma. So I mean, this just sounds like more of a mental barrier that you kind of have to like overcome. I think winning on tank is very satisfying because it's a undervalued and underappreciated role. And like, forget what the enemy team says, like tank diff, like who cares? Next hot take is the critical damage multiplier, aka the headshot damage multiplier, should be halved. It decreases the gap between casuals who mostly shoot body and confident aimers who can consistently go for heads while still enabling and rewarding it. And hopefully tanks would go boom less frequently. This is certainly a hot take because some heroes already have a lower headshot multiplier, and having a 2x multiplier on most heroes is fine. And tanks, if you don't know, already have a headshot multiplier reduction as part of their tank passive, so that's fine. I don't think we need to tune like a global rule where all heroes get their headshot multiplier halved again. I can list you some that already have lower headshot multiplier. Illari, Sojourn, like it exists. So I think you can go on a case-by-case basis instead of like a global rule of a reduction here. Hot take, the annoying heroes like Sombra, Tracer, or Doomfist should be added to Stadium sooner rather than later. Stadium right now is basically just everyone using one meta build. Quote unquote annoying characters like Sombra are more likely to actually force you into a different build, like a defensive build, than a normal character like Soldier. The game needs more variety in meta builds for each team, and adding heroes people might actively try to counter could fix it. That is one option, and I agree that like I feel like Sombra, Tracer, or Doom would never actually like be as problematic in Stadium as they are in the base game in terms of like how annoying it is to play against, because you can build so differently. For example, Zenyatta, you would be like, well, Zen gets farmed by these heroes in the base game, but right now there's a flying kick Zen build and he gains like 500, 600 HP with Giga armor right now, and that's already like a viable build outside of these heroes being in the game. So if these heroes are in the game, like as Zen, I could really hunker down on the melee kick build to help kick this damn Tracer and this damn Sombra off me. I think that'd be pretty fun. So I actually think they can go with any heroes being added into Stadium. And like what Tracer and Sombra and Doom can do are not exclusive to them in Stadium, because people can buy items and different powers that give them certain movement that is impossible in the base game. Like Reinhardt being able to fly with his charge already like opens up so much at like his main weaknesses in the main game, but is no longer weakness in Stadium. So I mean, they could add these heroes now, but I don't think it would actually change what people build. I think the biggest change in the variety of meta builds is to actually tune some of the powers and the items and give some more options and have people figure out a couple more meta builds. For example, I think Juno right now, ever since they nerfed the torpedo build, you can still build it. It's not meta anymore. They could actually buff it again slightly, in my opinion, because a new meta build has emerged with like super fast glide boost, getting extra tanky, and getting Stinger on her weapon, which is the power that allows her to do AP damage on each auto attack. And when you do that and you multiply and you buy items like liquid nitrogen or like the cyber venom, which anti-heals or slows people, you're basically a mobile Mei where you and mobile Ana, where you constantly shoot people as Juno and you're constantly debuffing the crap out of them. Same with Moira. There's actually like heal Moira builds, there's flank Moira builds, and then there's a debuff Moira build where like she fires multi-balls and they all have like cyber venom, anti-heal, and all those like status effects. And I've seen that kind of like rise. But right now, this season has been a lot better for Stadium in terms of different meta builds, getting a little bit of a spotlight right now. Next hot take is I really don't want map voting. I remember CS or Counter-Strike map picks, and every single match was just dust. People will suck the fun and variety out of the game for comfort picks. I mean, that's a viable option. Right now, I made the suggestion in the last video in the Reddit one with map voting being the third one being true random. And I got comments saying like, this is already true. Try and screenshot some of the comments in the last one. However, I should have clarified that I actually want like the third random option in map voting to be a question mark and not already reveal what it is. Even though it's already chosen at random, I don't want them to show it. So when people see the first two options already, the third one should be left blank. If they don't like the first two, they should just hit the question mark on the third one, and the question mark will reveal after the vote is over if a lot of people voted for random. That's what I want in the game, rather than the third already being a predetermined random, because people already see it and have already made their decision, even though that one was true random and the first two are kind of like pseudo random, I think is what Gavin said. So yeah, I see where you're coming from though. People will pick favorites, and like not everyone will have the same favorite as others. For example, a lot of people will try to vote for King's Row, but I don't actually love King's Row as much as I did back then. Like I'm down to like pick something else, but I would actually just pick random if I feel a little devious, you know? Ooh, an interesting Sombra take here. Hot take: Sombra's issue is not stealth. It's her absurd damage output. Every time the player base has complained about an aspect of her kit and Blizzard nerfs it, Blizzard has given Sombra damage buffs to compensate. In Overwatch 2, that was adding the damage buff on Opportunists. Oh yeah, that's right. If you hacked them, you would do a damage boost, right? You would get like 25% amp damage or whatever the hell Opportunist was back then. Then they reworked Translocator and added Virus, and now they've made Invisible much less consistent, but gave her Opportunist's damage buff back. What makes Sombra feel so annoying to play against is the fact that after these repeated changes, she can now exit stealth and delete people in less than a second after a hack. Overwatch 1 Sombra was nowhere near as good of a duelist, and surprise, surprise, very few people complained about Invis. Back then, the main complaint was just hack being so oppressive, especially in an environment like Overwatch 1, where there was so much CC. In short, Blizzard needs to address Sombra's TTK out of Invis and start shifting power back into disabling and debuffing targets rather than outright deleting them from existence. Sincerely, a launch Sombra main. I see where you're coming from, but I think the flip side is not her absurd damage output. I don't even think her damage output is that crazy. It's the uncontested damage output, especially out of stealth, when people feel like they don't have enough time to respond to it. From a perspective of support player, I've never really like been super annoyed at Sombra, because like, at least for me, if I know one's in the game, I'm hyper aware and I'm pivoting, my head's on a swivel and I'm ready to like react to it and try to kick her out and get her out of there. But not every average player plays with a swivel on their head. It's the same complaint I see in Marvel, where they get like uncontested damage from like Black Panther, or people just like quote unquote one-shotting them when they can't even react to it. Sombra's always been a little bit of a skill check hero, but it's like her damage output uncontested is kind of like the point I'm trying to nail home. So like for me, I think it's addressing the TTK, or maybe changing the window of the unstealth to being able to use the ability. So if you hear the unstealth, you have a chance to maybe like react to it. You can probably keep her damage numbers similar, but maybe the stall or delay before coming out of stealth before she's able to output stuff. Because right now I can stay invisible, hack you while invisible, shoot a virus while invisible beforehand to kind of like start ramping up the damage. And I think that's the part that feels frustrating from the other perspective. You're coming from the perspective of a launch Sombra main, but I think from the perspective of why people just feel like it's annoying is it just feels like because of the stealth factor, they just can't deal with that. Your point about Overwatch 1 Sombra being nowhere near as good of a duelist, and surprise, surprise, very few people complain about Invis, I disagree. I still think people throughout all iterations of Overwatch have always complained about Sombra, but this is not just a Sombra issue, it's just stealth in general. It's just a tough topic in all games. You look at League of Legends, you get the Evelyns, the Twitches, any Invis and stealth stuff ends up being a frustrating skill check mechanic. I don't play World of Warcraft, but I can assume like noobs will be really annoyed at like rogues who can do similar things. Super annoying. And I think for me, just addressing the time between stealth to being able to deal damage, that time variable is the bigger thing. But I'm no game designer, maybe I'm completely off on the mark on that, but that's just my opinion. I'll do one more take for the week. Hot take: Mercy is the hero with the greatest discrepancy between her real contribution and what is acknowledged by the scoreboard. They should make a change so that Rez adds the resurrected hero's health to her total healing done, and also so that her damage boost is added to her damage dealt, not to her total damage after boost, but just the difference between what the boosted hero did and what they would have done without the boost. That's an interesting take. I agree. There's a lot of discrepancy on like perceived value, what you see on the scoreboard, because like Mercy does a lot of things that aren't represented very well. Also, some people will look at healing numbers that a Moira does. There's also the same argument that Moira's discrepancy is too high as well, because Moira will be like top healing by a long margin, but like she is an AoE healer. She has a lot of self healing when she duels, and it's a lot of free throw some healing out and your number go up. So they, like, a Moira player would have this like wrong perception of being like, I'm doing so much for my team, look at all this healing. But I mean, like, yeah, that's your baseline, that's what you should be doing. But Mercy's like a single target healer, so that stat won't be as fluffy as a Moira's, and then everybody just gets the wrong idea. So I agree, Mercy is one of the heroes. Moira is another example of too much. I just think the overall takeaway point is that the scoreboard should have extra drop down menus, because right now we already have the option to like kind of like have a movable mouse to click stuff on the scoreboard. Like you can increase people's volumes, mute people from the scoreboard now. So there should be like a top area where I can change the stat display from like, you know, total healing or total damage, and just show off that, you know, we can have that damage boost number or amount of damage taken that a tank is, so like tank players can't complain that they, you know, they're not getting healed, but they're actually just taking so much damage. Extra stats to see, especially if people want to be scoreboard sallies and use that as a gotcha moment to make an argument in the team chat. You could just drop down the stats and be like, hey, I told you so. That's not true. But overall scoreboard cleanup in that sense, where you can filter out and show stats that matter to you, would solve this issue in the discrepancy itself, instead of Mercy's being specifically different, because that would look a little strange when you press tab now. We see Mercy's damage difference between boosted and unboosted for her damage done, but it's not true damage done, because damage done is calculated based on her pistol, right? That should be a separate stat, the one that you mentioned. Fix that with just the scoreboard change. Anyways, that's it for this week's hot takes. Leave some more in the comments. Peace.